Right then, Pokemon fans, I have confirmation that my shiny code works. So since it's such a sort of short piece of code, show it working, and we shall also show the code and how to do it, as well as any updates that I've done to the Mew distro. If you go to the Pokemon Yellow disassembly, get all set up, ready to go, you'll notice that this user here, Rainbow Metal Pigeon, has done an update to change a function name to a human readable thing, update to happiness, and that's happened 5 days ago, which is the most recent change so far. I noticed it actually yesterday, so mine was obviously slightly out of date because of that. So I just implemented that fix, and at the same time, decided to Google this person, and since they've got access to the GitHub and I can't be bothered with two-factor authentication, I've decided to drop my little shiny code fix in there, and I'm hoping they can add it to the go to Poke Yellow wiki tutorials. There's a whole bunch of tutorials down there. Now, unfortunately, it's not the same as if you change it to the Poke Red repository, which if you search for shiny, it says to do shiny Pokemon. I'm not saying my method is the best way to do it. I'm not a programmer. I don't know how it affects the game, in all honesty, but I've completed my previous build, which the code for shinies apparently wasn't working because I managed to get to like 150 hours of speed boosting through it using the increased speed method on the emulator. And anyway, I didn't get a shiny, but I've just confirmed for the first time that this does work. So we'll boot that up straight away. We'll show the results. We'll just go into the Game Boy. And obviously I didn't catch the thing. I didn't record it. I had to force a Master Ball into my bag to be able to catch it. And then I just called it shiny. So these are the stats. And this is my data. And if you open up the save in to pkhex, which is not great, but at least it will work. We'll go to our party, and you can see it is a legit shiny Rattata as well for wild encounter. So that's really cool to confirm that it's actually working. And one of the best things about it is the shortness of the code. So if we go back and go to engine, battle, and for ASM, then we scroll down to line 6194. Let's just do it in both windows, I suppose, which is here, random DVs for Wildmon. We can then do a search for that here, find it. The way you'll notice is it's got these 3 lines of code here, and unfortunately whatever's happening is it's doing this thing, it's grabbing the value, and then it's just overriding the value with what it was, which I believe is the reason why why it's not working, because you'll notice here they've got fixed the A and B. Anyway, I did 4 tests. The first one I thought was working, but it wasn't. Nothing was happening. I tried to force it and it didn't work. And then the 3rd test that I got to, I completed the game with and didn't see a shiny all the way through it. So obviously that wasn't working. So I went back to version 1 and mixed it with version 3. And now the result is this 6 lines of code. Obviously 3 of them are just identical anyway. And then with just using C, which I believe should be okay and shouldn't interfere with anything else. The best thing about this is it's such a little amount of ASM that if you only wanted to change Pokemon Red or Pokemon Green, Blue, Red, or Yellow, just enable shiny Pokemon in the wild for wild encounters in the grass, then you could do it as a binary difference patch and you could just copy and paste the hex data in if you wanted. It'd be really easy to do. So I need to do a build of the original clean and a build of just these 6 lines of code to make the comparison. But it really is that simple. If you want to go one step further, as usual, after I've done all of my stuff, because I fucking hate the internet, I did then check to see some of these ROM hacks and things that are going around, although I don't like the term ROM hack, the term mods, and you should do it as separate mods that other people can implement, so that's why we're doing the source code here and showing it. Obviously I found this dude and just decided to post it there because that's the dude that clearly has access to the GitHub, so hopefully you'll see a tutorial on there. Maybe someone will find a better way of doing it, but this is pretty cool. It doesn't interfere with any of the other code. It doesn't fuck up any bytes or any offsets. Now, if you want to show an actual message, which is how I noticed mine was shiny, rather than saying a wild Pokemon appeared, you're going to want to say a wild shiny, in my example, Rattata appeared. So to do that, unfortunately, I haven't put in a separate file, which might be the best thing to do, but I've just overridden the common underscore text folder. Just after the trainer battle before the wild battle, here we've put our shiny check. Now, this just means that obviously every time it loads up a battle, it's going to do a shiny check. It's going to check for the values to ensure that they are shiny possibilities if they were traded to Gen 2, or for example, opening up in PKX, we can read it. And then my actual shiny check that we just wrote happens on the do not draw Pokeballs thing. So this seems like an okay way to insert it, but the problem is the bytes get offset a little bit, and then need to change this JR to a jump, or jump return to a jump, or whatever the fuck's going on, which fixes the bytes thing, but obviously I'm pretty sure it's going to cock something up by not doing that. Maybe I should add a return after it. I really don't know what to do, so I'm not a programmer, and I can't find a cheat sheet for assembly that describes everything. So working out what like a load was, being a move or a copy and things like that was a bit of a pain in the ass because everything was trial and error. Anyway, you can do all that, and then you can pop your shiny text code at the bottom of common text, which won't have interference to anything whatsoever because it's a completely separate file. And you want to do it when you're fishing and in the wild. So that'll give you your shiny message. If you want to go further, you could use the example of Red, and I believe they use an unused animation. I, in all honesty, checked through their code, and it seems like a wild amount of changes that they've made to the base of it, and I'm working on Pokemon Yellow as it is, which is different. And the information is not global between the two files. They're actually different for the wiki tutorials, which is a bit weird. Other than that, hopefully that video helps. The Mew distro, that should be working as well. So if we boot up our Pokemon Yellow, and we're going to have to go to a training center here, go quickly heal. And I don't particularly want to lose any of my Pokemon, especially with having a shiny Rattata. So we'll now go to the dev folder for the Mew distro, and I'm pretty sure this is the most recent build. Hopefully I haven't changed anything. It would be good for me to put a name of the Pokemon down the bottom that we're selecting, but the problem is the speed of this might not allow for it, although technically the entire window is updating at the same time, so it should sync and be okay. We're going to choose Pokemon 14, which I know is Psyduck. We're going to connect, and we're going to link, and we're going to listen, and we'll choose that Psyduck, and then we go in there. Okay. Save a game, and we go to the Trade Coliseum, and hopefully it won't time out. Okay, so we're now in the Trade Coliseum. And there's a little bit of delay. I don't think the code's perfect. In all honesty, I probably messed something up that Grenda originally did. But whatever, I left a message on his YouTube, and I think YouTube just classed it as spam. So what we can do now is we could trade our Pokemon. I've just noticed that unfortunately I'm not grabbing the nicknames, I'm only grabbing the name. So I definitely need to change that because we don't want to accidentally trade our shiny Rattata. But if I was to trade my Pidgey now for a Psyduck, obviously I would receive that Psyduck. It'd be great. If you want to update the code, I've added a little kind of extra script. So if we go into our events folder, which is the separate file I've used to add our Pokemon data, these are all the Pokemon that we've got available. There's mainly the event Pokemon, as well as a couple of cool ones that I've added myself. This is obviously our Pokemon information. We've got PKX, which allows us to go into our save folder, wherever it was, here. Grab our Pokemon from our party, save it as a pk1 file. Go back to our new distro folder. And just call this rat now. Modify our PowerShell scripty thing to make sure we're in the right folder. Change the name of our Pokemon. We're going to open up PowerShell and grab the command to run that PowerShell with an elevated execution policy. That's going to convert it to the block of data that we need. And then, because we're adding a new Pokemon, increase this from 23 to 24. I'm not quite sure why this code works with leaving the commas in there. Never really understood. Normally I would just remove them, but whatever. So that's our new block of data. Obviously what we need to do is ideally change the moves to the names, search in the other file for the appropriate name. If you want to, you can just make life easier by copying an existing block. It's easier to get the code working all on vertical and easier to read for me than horizontal, so that's why it's done that way. Anyway, you just need to then plug in your species or whatever, but we know it's a data. And I'm not quite sure why the level's wrong. I'll double check that. We know what the level is anyway, because we can see it in our save file or whatever, and then we can implement the move sets. And we know that the base stats are going to be right because they're shiny. Goes in for the IVs and DVs and stuff. Like there, and your experience points here, and the nickname and the original trainer name, which once you've modified your code once, you will have your original trainer name. Obviously that's going to be different per playthrough, but whatever. You can add that to it, and you can just run the recompile command, and then you're good to go. Event Pokemon that were included in there, by the way, were just a couple of the Yoshira Mews, and the virtual. There was the Yoshira Mews, the Mario OT Mew, all of the PCNY things. I'm not quite sure whether they're real or not, but I did those, and all of the N64 Stadium ones. There is a custom Psyduck with Amnesia, and there is also my custom shiny Psyduck in there from my legitimate shiny Psyduck catch. It's also a good way to save your Pokemon as well, I suppose, because you could build yourself a little distribution machine that contains the information for all of your Pokemon. I think that's going to be the last update for everything now, because I've pretty much done 2 or 3 videos on the progress of it so far. I'm ready to play my game entirely through. I've got a shiny, should be good to go. Clearly some of these scripts need changing for that macro script, but it's good enough if you want to quickly transfer data over. More useful, yeah, it's more useful to have that with pkhex, I suppose, or the game open to just grab that little bit of missing information that the conversion processes. But we'll check it another day. Whatever, hopefully that helps people. Enjoy.